Thank you for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast, the podcast that covers everything fantasy football, from traditional leagues to PPR leagues to IDP leagues, all the way down to daily fantasy leagues. We got you covered. I'm your host here, Tate, and today we're going to do a bit of a special episode here. Had a pretty nice, it's been a really nice weekend here in California. We're up here in the Sacramento area. It's a little warmer up here. The Bay Area is a lot cooler. But one of the things that was going on this weekend was I ended up getting a phone call from a good friend of mine from college. And I went to school at the University of Akron in Akron, Ohio. Born and raised in Ohio. And but a really good friend of mine called me up, and it was really good to catch up with him. And we were talking about good old days and all the the funny and crazy times that you had back in college. And a particular story came up where we were talking about the one time we ended up going to this bar or this club at Akron U, and I'd been to this club a bunch of times, and so I go into the club with my buddy, and he sees this girl, and this girl's an absolute knockout. And I mean, she's just banging. I mean, hair's perfect, beautiful eyes, just stacked from head to toe. And but I had seen this girl in the club a lot. She's pretty much in the club every single night. And a couple of my fraternity brothers had gone out with her a couple times, and it was just all drama and issues. And my buddy that we were talking about, he saw this girl, and she just looked too good. He had to go after her. And I told him, listen, be careful. She's not, she looks good, but just because someone looks good doesn't mean they're always really that great. But he was like, nope, I'm going for her. And so he went for her, and they started talking. They started going out, and this girl was full of nothing but drama. Next thing you know, he's they dated for a little while, but she was one of those girls that had to have some drama in her life, whether it was have to have him jealous, so she'd flirt with another guy or kind of come on to another guy just to get him jealous. He'd end up getting in fights. There was all kind of issues that came up, and we were laughing about this story because he was just saying, he was like, you kept saying to me, don't trust her. Don't do it. Don't go after her. And, and he was laughing. He's like, you know what? In hindsight, I really wish I would have listened to you. And that made me think about you guys today. All the fantasy players out there. And I wanted to get together with you guys just to talk about people and players you shouldn't trust with your 2016 fantasy football draft. There's some players that just like the girl I told you at Akron U, who they look amazing, they look fantastic, and you just want to go for them. But there's a few of them, and I listed 15 players that I personally think you should avoid. And I'm going to give you the reason why you avoid them. And hopefully I can look out for you the way I tried to look out for my buddy. So when we come back, we're going to start touching on my 15 don't trust them players for the 2016 fantasy football season. I'll be right back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Okay, we're back. And what we're just talking about is we're talking about, fantasy football and those players that you just shouldn't trust. And I gave a story about my buddy who had gone after a girl that I warned him, don't go after. Well, this is my warning to you guys about 15 players that you should definitely not trust this year. And some of them are going to look pretty darn good. And these are in no particular order, but I'm gonna go down the list. I'm gonna give you my reason. And hey, guys, I can't say I didn't warn you. All right, so let's go around, and we're gonna start right out the gate with one of the players who has been Mr. Money in the Bank for years. He's actually one of my favorite players in fantasy football. He's actually one of my favorite players in the NFL, and that is Matt Forte. Matt Forte has been, the consummate professional. He's always been on his game. Just a great guy, hard worker. He's worked really hard and performed really well. But he just this year he's with the Jets, and so he's no longer with the organization that he's always been with, that actually know what they're getting out of him. There's a lot of reasons. Just the fact that, and I'm sorry, there's a lot of things about the Jets, but the Jets as a whole, you never could trust the Jets. The Jets are always that team that will break your heart. And this year, Matt Forte is going to be a part of those one of those players for the Jets that's going to break your heart. And the first reason why is the fact that, bringing in an older running back to a brand new team, traditionally, coaches do not trust older running backs. They'll bring them, they'll use them a little bit, but they always use them sparingly. And so Forte, being an older running back, and then you look around and you say, the Jets also have Ballard Powell. They also have Robinson. So it's going to be a running back by committee situation where they're all going to be getting a lot of carries. Forte is just not going to have the touches that he's used to getting. Second thing, the thing that has made Forte so attractive year after year after year with the Chicago Bears is the fact that the passing game out of the backfield, Jay Cutler, he was always that security blanket for Jay Cutler. You could count on Forte to get you a group of yards, and then he could go off in the receiving game as well. So he got plenty of touches in the passing game. He got plenty of touches in the running game. He got goal line touches. He got goal line passes. But that's not going to happen with Fitzpatrick. But it's definitely not going to happen if Geno Smith is the quarterback. And, because it's very publicized how the fact that, Ryan Fitzpatrick had such an amazing season last year, but the Jets just don't want to pay him. And it's one of those things where no matter what happens with this, the longer it goes with Fitzpatrick, the less practice, the less Forte and the rest of the team will be able to kind of build continuity between each other. And then, guys, I'm telling you, and girls, if Geno Smith is your quarterback and you're expecting Geno Smith to lead your team to the promised land by throwing passes to Forte, you got another thing coming. Do not trust Matt Forte just for the fact that Geno Smith could be a starting quarterback. You take in consideration Geno Smith. The Jets are known to breaking everyone's heart. Fitzpatrick, who had an amazing year, but traditionally, is Fitzpatrick that guy that's really your heart and soul for your team? With that, Forte is my very first don't trust them player of the 2016 season. Now, my next player of the don't trust them type of player still goes into that running back category. And this is another guy who I have loved for years. I've loved him even back when he was in college at the University of Miami. I was always a big Miami fan, and with that, I was even a bigger Frank Gore fan. And when Frank Gore was with the 49ers, he was a workhorse. Goal line touches, hard hitting, he gets hit at the line, he's going to get you a few extra more yards. He was just one of those guys that was always a guy that you want on your roster. You want him on your roster and you want to start him. But, last year he was with the Colts, and he's still with the Colts, of course. But when's the last time that anyone has been excited about a Colts running back? I mean, Edgerrin James? Edgerrin James is the last guy that I've really been excited about. There's never been, in recent years, a running back that I think about and I say, man, that that Indianapolis Colts running back, I want to have him on my roster, because there just isn't one. The minute you put that horseshoe on the side of the helmet, that horseshoe on the helmet, he instantly drops from a number 1 running back to a number 3 running back, maybe even a number 4. Then you mix in the fact that Frank Gore is a much older running back. He's a young man as far as in years, but he's an old workhorse when it comes to football years. He's a much older running back. A team who has traditionally never put out top running backs, traditionally do not put out top running backs. Then you also look at that offensive line situation and you say, okay, it's one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. Last year, I thought it was the worst offensive line in the NFL. So, you got, and you also have Andrew Luck, who had a rough year, but I think he's going to have a big bounce back year. But the fact of the matter is, when you mix in a situation where an old running back plus a bad offensive line equals absolute bust. Love Frank Gore and the service that he's put in the NFL, but this is one guy you just can't trust. Now, I'm going to move on to my next can't trust him. And this is one of those guys that, just like I was talking about my friends, the girl he saw at the club, looks amazing, fantastic, and that you never see this person ever. This person's always on point. You hear the name, you gotta go for him, and that person is Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald, and I had Larry Fitzgerald last year, and he had one of the best years he's had in a long time. Fitzgerald is a quality guy, hard worker. But one of the things that I noticed with Fitzgerald, and Fitzgerald kind of cost me my championship last year, was the fact that once Malcolm Floyd came back and he became healthy, down the stretch, Fitzgerald only had one touchdown. That once Michael Floyd came back, and with that you mix in the fact that it's another year on another candle on the cake for Larry Fitzgerald. You look at Brown and you have Floyd at wide receiver, and guys, believe this. When you look around and you say Brown is the number 1 receiver, Floyd is the number 2 receiver, and Larry Fitzgerald is the number 3 option, this is one of those guys that you can look around and you're looking in the draft and you're trying to pull in a quarterback and you see the name Larry Fitzgerald, and if you're not thinking about it, you're going to click on Larry Fitzgerald and that's your guy, and you're going to go draft him. You just don't want to go up too high to go pick up a number 3 option wide receiver. In the previous years, he's been a fantastic person. But as far as fantasy value goes, this year, don't trust him. Now, my next guy, we're going to stay in the exact same team. And there's another guy, just like Larry Fitzgerald, who who looks good, had a fantastic year last year, and has traditionally, just like Larry Fitzgerald, is one of those guys that has the big name. And if you're not thinking, you will go and reach out and grab him. And that person is Chris Johnson. Chris Johnson started out the year and had a really great year. He turned back the clock. Everyone was really very pleased with him. But the fact of the matter is, when you're looking around and you say David Johnson is one of the top running backs in the NFL, I could even make a case that David Johnson could be one of the top 3 running backs drafted in this year's draft. So you got one of the top 3 running backs in the NFL. You got Andre Ellington as well, and you have Chris Johnson. You're looking around at a scenario where Chris Johnson could be a number 2 or number 3 running back for the Cardinals, which I think the Cardinals are my Super Bowl pick. But the fact of the matter is that, when you're looking around, you're looking at Chris Johnson as possibly a third down option, where he's actually going to split carries third down as far as that goes with Andre Ellington. So there's not going to be a lot of opportunities for him, Chris Johnson, to do, much of anything this year. And then you also take in the fact that he's a much older quarterback. This is one of those guys, and Larry Fitzgerald. So you got 2 guys on the exact same team with top-notch names that you could easily make a mistake and get a little desperate. The clock is kind of counting down on you on when it's time for your pick, and you could just by the name, you could pull Larry Fitzgerald or Chris Johnson, and it could ruin your season. For that, these 2 guys are 2 of my can't trust them guys. And I just I'm just giving you a warning. I know a lot of people are going to say Larry Fitzgerald, he was fantastic. Chris Johnson, he was fantastic last year. Don't trust them. Okay, and then we're going to talk about another guy. Going back to the running back, and traditionally, you get kind of a bit of a theme here because you get a lot of running backs here. So even when you look at my first 3 of my 4 first can't trust them guys were all running backs. My number 5 guy is no different. He's a running back, and that is from the Dallas Cowboys, Darren McFadden. Darren McFadden is one of those guys where you look at and you say, you know what? He had one of the better years in a long time. He really made a comeback. And I will tell you this, he's another guy that looks fantastic as far as on paper, where he has the big name. He actually had a season where he's actually pretty healthy, and he actually put up some decent numbers. And you'll look around and you'll be saying, you know what, I got to go for Darren McFadden. But, the fact of the matter is, if he was going to be the Cowboys running back of the future, why did they go up and draft in the first round, and early in the first round, Ezekiel Elliott? And that's because Ezekiel Elliott is one of the top running backs in fantasy football right now. If you're going to go anywhere, if you're going to take a running back from the Dallas Cowboys, go early, get you Ezekiel Elliott. Kind of like the first guy on the list of my can't trust him guys, where it's Matt Forte. Ezekiel Elliott is one of those guys who can run the ball and run the ball hard. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. And because of that, you have a situation where if you got a running back that can run the ball hard and catch the ball out of the backfield, that means there's not a lot of third down plays for a guy like Darren McFadden. Then you also look in the fact that they went out and got Alfred Morris, and they also have Lance Dunbar coming back. Where are all these extra carries? Because most of the carries are going to go to Ezekiel Elliott, and the rest is going to be divided up between Darren McFadden, Alfred Morris, and Lance Dunbar. Everybody on this list can't trust them. I'm just telling you, looks good, but is just not the guy. Now, my next guy I'm going to talk about is another running back. And this is another running back who, had one of those, kind of had a breakout year last year. I was actually very happy for him. And that running back is Chris Ivory. Chris Ivory, had a really great year with the Jets. Really showed his value. I actually had him on my team. I was very pleased with him. Hard-working guy. Especially the fact that he was a Jet and he actually performed. That gives him, a tip of the hat right there. But when you look around and you look at Chris Ivory, and the first thing I will always tell you, as a rule, never, ever trust a running back who is on his third team. That means he started out with New Orleans. He spent a lot of years in New Orleans, a number of years in New Orleans. He went to the Jets, and now he's actually a Jacksonville Jaguar. Now and then you mix in the fact that T.J. Yeldon is actually going to be is actually a younger up and coming running back as well. They're going to be sharing carries. Do not expect to get the same results from Chris Ivory that you got last year from him, because he's not with the Jets any longer. He's with the Jacksonville Jaguars, which I count as one of my sleeper teams as far as a team that's actually going to make some headway. But I don't, as far as making him one of your, top picks or one of those running backs that you want to lean on, I say don't trust him. Okay, now when we come back, we're going to talk about, we're going to hit a couple of receivers, and we're going to continue on to my don't trust them players of the 2016 draft. Stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Okay, we're back, and we're just going through my don't trust them, can't trust them players of the 2016 season, and my list started out very strong with running backs. Pretty much there's kind of a theme. If it's an older running back, be a little weary of older running backs, because the drop off can be huge, and it can really mess up your entire draft. But so I'm going to go on to my next group of players that I say you can't trust, and I'm going to group two of them together right out the gate. And that is Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, the two wide receivers for the Denver Broncos. Guys, you hear the name Demaryius Thomas, you hear the name Emmanuel Sanders, and these are traditionally two guys that you want to go up and get. Well, last year, Peyton Manning wasn't Peyton Manning, and those guys' numbers dropped off. But the fact of the matter is, an old, injured Peyton Manning still can work the game enough that he can actually get a lot of short passes to Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. And so, you're expecting good things out of him. But there's no Peyton Manning anymore. So you say, who's the Broncos quarterback? And you're thinking Brock Osweiler. And he's not there anymore. So you're like, who's going to be the quarterback for the Denver Broncos? Sanchez. That's right. Mark Sanchez, the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos. And with that, just saying the name Sanchez, don't trust him. You know, you start thinking, I go right back to the whole thing I said about jet quarterbacks and breaking your heart. Well, Sanchez comes right from that long line of disappointing jet quarterbacks. And now he's a Bronco. And anyone that thinks he's going to come in and set the world on fire, I have to see it before I believe it. I don't trust Mark Sanchez. As a whole, Thomas is one of those guys who, young, a stud wide receiver. But if you can't get the ball to you, you're in trouble. Taking count that the Broncos' offensive line is not going to be as good as it was last year. And, and that's one of the problems that Peyton Manning had was, he needed more protection. Now, with a little bit more of a weaker offensive line, Mark Sanchez as your quarterback, even though, I do like Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders as a whole, they're guys that, you can take a flyer on them later in the draft, but don't go up and try to go early for these guys. These are two guys you just can't trust. So, even though I know the Broncos are Super Bowl champions, they're going to make a big slide back. I don't see them making the playoffs this year. And with that, I mean, if they're not a playoff contender, they don't have a quarterback. The offensive line is going to be a little bit more suspect, which means it's going to be a really rough day for Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. Don't trust them. All right, so I'm going to go next to a guy who, once again, is one of those guys who have really sexy name, has been a rock star in the league year after year after year. This next guy is a tight end who, for many years, was better than almost every wide receiver in the NFL. That was superstar Jimmy Graham. And, but not so much of a superstar. Everyone was expecting him to have a breakout year when he, by leaving New Orleans and going to Seattle. But for some reason, and Pete Carroll is one of those coaches who I have so much respect for. Pete Carroll is one of the best coaches in the NFL. But for some reason, they just didn't use Jimmy Graham very effectively. I didn't think they used him right at all. I thought even later in the year when I thought, finally they would start to use him, they still didn't really use him properly. They didn't use him the way he's accustomed to being used. And I see none of that changing for them. Then you take into account there's no Marshawn Lynch there this year. So the running game's going to be a little bit tougher. I see this is one of those guys that you could see someone saying, I want to make sure I get me a good tight end this year, because a tight end is one of those positions where they can make you or they can break you, because those points, are so valuable. And a good tight end is one of those guys that can really, like a Gronkowski. That's just money in the bank. And Jimmy Graham used to be money in the bank, but now, this is, he's one of those guys you just can't trust. So I would not go for Jimmy Graham. I would go for many other tight ends, but Jimmy Graham is one of those guys that, and I don't like carrying a lot of tight ends on my team, on my roster. So I only carry one tight end. And with that, I wouldn't have Jimmy Graham on my team. And I know that sounds bad, but when you look at the numbers last year, he's a year older and an offense that hasn't proven that they can use him properly. Don't trust him, guys. Okay. And, and so we're really, bringing in and kind of balancing out it, because we started out heavy with running backs, and then we've just ran off 3 straight receivers, and we're going to go to our 4th receiver. And this is a guy who, is one of those big names again that you would look at and you say, oh, I got to have this guy. I got to have this guy. And that's Victor Cruz. And you look around and you say, Victor Cruz of the Giants, Tom Coughlin, who has had more of a conservative offense, is no longer there. They're going to really unleash Eli Manning, and, he's going to have a breakout year. Well, the fact of the matter is, Victor Cruz missed most of last year, or he did miss pretty much all of last year, with a torn patella tendon, and and a number of other injuries. These are kind of injuries that guys are never the same. And when you're looking at a guy like Victor Cruz, who lived and died with speed, when you have injuries like that, you lose a step or two. And he's a little bit older. He's coming off of major injury. He's one of those guys. And then you look around and you say, okay, arguably the best wide receiver, one of the best 2 wide receivers in the NFL. So they got Odell Beckham Jr. And then you look around, and if there's a wide receiver to take a flyer on, I would tell you Ruben Randall, than Victor Cruz. Or Preston Parker, but I would not trust Victor Cruz. There won't be a lot of salsa dancing this year, guys. So avoid him. Don't trust him. And look out for your lineup. All right, when we're going to go through, we're going to hit a couple more guys, and then we're going to wrap this up. So my next guy that I really want to talk about, this is a guy that this is a guy I've always liked. I always thought he would be a superstar if given the chance. And last year he actually came out and he was given a chance, and I was right. This guy was a rock star. He put up amazing numbers, and he's that guy that you'll look at it on the draft board, and you'll say, "Oh my God, D'Angelo Williams is still available." Well, guys, that's fool's gold. Don't trust him. D'Angelo Williams, great running back, but the Pittsburgh Steelers got more weapons than any team in NFL. They got the number 1 running back in the NFL. They got the number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. They got Big Ben. They got it all. And with that, you're looking at Le'Veon Bell, who runs the ball well, runs out of the backfield well. And D'Angelo Williams is still a great running back, but he's just not going to get the carries. He's not going to get the touches. He's one of those guys you can't trust. But here's a caveat with this one. If there was a situation where D'Angelo Williams is sitting around and you've drafted Le'Veon Bell, D'Angelo Williams is that perfect handcuff. He's that handcuff that can save your season. But if you're looking at a guy as a starter, a number 1 or a number 2, you can't trust him, and you can't depend on the fact that you're looking around saying, okay, Le'Veon Bell, he got injured last year, he'll get injured this year. That's called gambling, and I don't recommend it, guys. Le'Veon Bell is a force. He's a really good running back. He's young. He's strong. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball. So when you have a guy that the organization really trusts, really loves, and he can run and catch the ball, he's not coming off the field very often. Big Ben trusts this guy. And so with that, if he's on there first down, second down, and third down, there's no downs for D'Angelo Williams. He's just a handcuff this year, guys. Don't trust him. All right. Now, here's a guy our next guy is a guy here where he's been a fantastic guy his entire career. I've been a big fan of his. I've had him on a number of my teams over the years. But this is a guy that is incredibly attractive, and that big sexy pick that you could end up taking. But the fact of the matter is, he's old. Right now, he's not even on a team. But I'm sure, as practice and training camp goes on, he's going to get picked up, and it's going to be headline news that Arian Foster just got picked up by Team XYZ. Don't run out and start adjusting your draft board and saying, I'm going to get Arian Foster, because it's fool's gold again. This is a guy who's coming off of a whole slew of injuries. He's been injured. He's had some serious injuries too. And each one of those injuries takes their toll. Then you take a look at the fact that he's an older running back. So, slew of injuries, age, on a not a great team. This is a guy he's not on I was looking at last year, but he's not on the team at all right now. So, you don't want to take a chance on if he was worth something even right now, there would be an NFL GM that would be like, you know what? Let's bring him in right at the beginning of camp. Let's sign this guy. There's a reason why everyone's waiting. He's going to get drafted. He's going to get signed, but he's going to be that guy that's going to be picked up by somebody as a security blanket, not as a featured back. The days of Arian Foster being a featured back is just far, far away. Don't trust him. Okay, when we come back, we're going to go over just the last few of my can't trust him players, and I'll kind of recap, and then we'll cover everything else. All right? We'll be back after this.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Okay, we're back, and we've been covering players that you just don't trust, or players that look really sexy, have the big name, but you shouldn't trust anymore. And so we've covered, from running back to tight ends to wide receivers and quarterbacks, guys that look good, has that big name, and you could be fooled into drafting him. And that's why I call them I can't trust them or don't trust them kind of guys. Now, the next three, I'm just going to group them into one giant group. And I'm just going to name them right out the gate. Just line them up with my machine gun and just take them down. Justin Forsett, Joe Flacco, Steve Smith Jr., and anybody else that has a raven on the side of their helmet. Don't trust them. This is the year that the Ravens' age finally catches up with this team. This is an old team. I don't trust any player on this team. Justin Forsett, a couple years ago had an amazing breakout year, but he's been a journeyman in the NFL a long time and never really got a chance until a couple years ago. Last year wasn't that great of a year because a lot of situations there. Joe Flacco hasn't really put up a lot of big numbers. This is an old team that's not going to really put up a lot of numbers. So when you're looking at Justin Forsett, he's one of those guys. If you're gonna take him, he's an RB3 for me. He's one of those guys that if you have him on your roster, he's your running back that you're looking for to fill in for your bye week, but he's not my starter anymore. If he surprises anyone, and he has a good year, this is one of those guys that you wait to way late, or you wait till someone releases him, but don't go out and waste your draft pick on this guy. Don't waste any early draft picks on him. He's one of those guys when you're finishing out your lineup, that's when you go get him. The same with Steve Smith Jr., and I love me some Steve Smith. But the fact of the matter is, he's coming off an injury. He's coming off of a retirement where he wanted to retire last year, but he just didn't want his career to end away on an injury. So he's coming back for that one last hurrah. But the fact of the matter is, Steve Smith is coming off an injury. He's an older wide receiver. Now, he's a warrior out there. He's an absolute warrior, and he will give it his all. But the fact, coming off an injury, a very old wide receiver, which means, he's going to be a lot slower on what I think is going to be a bad team. This is a guy that I'm going to avoid. Now, I don't mind having Steve Smith Jr. on my team if he's my number 4 wide receiver, where I got 3 guys that I depend on, and I'm just sticking Steve Smith in when I have a situation where I got a wide receiver on bye week, or there's a really great matchup. But there's not going to be a lot of those this year. I'm avoiding him. And so that's one of my guys that you just can't trust. So don't touch him, don't touch Flacco, and don't touch Arian Foster. Not Arian Foster, but Justin Forsett. Don't trust Arian Foster either. But these are my guys that I'm saying, if you're very, astute and you avoid these guys, these are the guys that can actually really ruin your draft. Avoid these guys, and you can put together a really great team. So, and I'm going to recap these guys once again, just so you can remember them. The first one I talked about was Matt Forte, older, on a team, on a brand new team. I don't think the Jets are going to use him that well. We got Frank Gore. He's a Colt, and the Colts don't have a good offensive line, and he's a year older. The next one, we're going with the group of Cardinals, which is Larry Fitzgerald and Chris Johnson. Fitzgerald is a number 3 wide receiver, has gotten a lot older. His numbers really fell off at the end of the year. Same with Chris Johnson, an older guy, and you got a really young, up-and-coming stud with David Johnson. Then we roll right into Darren McFadden, who the Cowboys went out and got Ezekiel Jones. Then they also went out and got Alfred Morrison. Lance Dunbar's back. Darren McFadden is just a guy to avoid. Next was Chris Ivory. He's with a new team, on his 3rd team with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have a young running back with TJ Yeldon. So it's just one of those situations, and he's a little bit older. Next comes my Denver Bronco wide receivers. These guys are great wide receivers, and if they had a different quarterback, I would like these guys, but I don't want any wide receiver that has Mark Sanchez as the quarterback. The next one is Jimmy Graham with the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle just didn't use him properly last year. It's a shame, but I think Graham has a lot more left to give. But I don't think the Seahawks are set to give him the time that you would kind of expect for him. Next one is Victor Cruz. Victor Cruz is coming off of missing in pretty much the entire season off of patella tendon tear. And those are injuries that, and a bunch more, but these are injuries that really hurt speedy wide receivers. Taking the mix that you got Odell Beckham Jr., Ruben Rando, and Preston Parker. You just don't want him either. D'Angelo Williams is a guy that he's one of those guys that is a sleeper. But he's no longer a sleeper because everyone knows who he is. And with that, everyone will go high on him, and that's D'Angelo Williams. He's not going to get a lot of carries this year, guys. Unless Le'Veon Bell gets injured. Now, if he gets injured, you got gold. I mean, gold. But the fact is, betting that's a heck of a bet, betting that Le'Veon Bell is going to miss a lot of time. I don't see it happening, and for that, D'Angelo Williams is one of my guys I don't trust. Arian Foster is just not even on a team, and that should tell you everything you need to know. If he had something to give, there'd be an NFL franchise out there trying to get him. At some point in training camp, someone will bring him in. Don't get excited about him. Don't trust him. And then wrapping it up was the Baltimore Ravens Big Three, which is Forsett, Flacco, and Steve Smith Jr. This is a much older team who's going to take a major slide back. It's going to be a much slower offense. This is not the year to go out and get a Raven. Leave the Raven alone. And with that, this is my complete list of 15 guys you just can't trust. Thank you very much for your time. Remember to follow us always on Facebook and Twitter. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com, and you can always download us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Plus. With that, good night, and I'll see you later.